We're back. Oh, that was not smooth. Okay, I might just stay here for a little while. How about this? That dope 70s album pose. How about this one? Almost Dizzy Rascal, almost confused. Today, we was going to pretend that we had a pencil right next to us and proceed to discuss this amazing book. Now, I emailed Les Henry in the week asking if he knew about Frank Wilderson's work because during one of his Twilight Bay exchanges, which Toyin Agbetu also featured, only mentioned Orlando Patterson's Slavery and Social Death, which was like, eh. So I emailed Les, he sent me a response saying he might look into Wilderson's work. Now the interesting thing was, I was listening to Tommy Curry again this week, the COVID-19 one, and I was seeing the young brother getting grey, and I was like, whoa. And he said something along the lines of, maybe that's why I'm getting grey, all the stress that men endure. And even going through my email, because I usually email my Android notes back to myself, then review them. And one of the things I saw was that men are made use of as utilities and then disposed of. And they're very conscious of this disposability factor. So perhaps that's what Tommy Curry was alluding to in his remarks during that 1 hour interview. The other thing that came to mind is I was actually thinking about sending my notes to Curry about this book, as I truly do believe this is the prequel to The Man Not. And even thinking along the lines of Rouge, Red Pill, Paul Elam, the whole of the gang, oh my gosh, show my face. I really do think that this text, published 94, was very much, I can't say ahead of its time, but forward thinking, definitely I would give it that. And it's the use of language. I see the term hypergamy used in this, which I think he borrowed from Medhabuti, whatever that youth's name is. I can't even find it right now. I also saw the word mercenary in this, which is something me and my friend were talking about in regards to this Twitter list, about how female sexuality is used as a weapon and females are mercenaries and we're missionaries. And how this mercenary use of sex, to almost quote from Simon Shepherd, is akin to a form of psychological trickery or chicanery or deception, in a way as it's done to program men and confuse them and confound them ultimately so that females can exploit this ambiguity. Don't ask what's on my face, okay? This is battle scars. This is the dead president's thing I was going for. So I'm both showing more of myself and I ain't showing nothing. So that came to mind as well. If you're wondering about the mask, I had this on my face, so I can actually like mask up completely, not as if people don't know who I am. I guess it's just a bit more fun. It's like Bane says, no one cared who I was until I had on the mask. So, you know how it goes. The other thing is, I'm not even timing this, so I'm gonna go by this phone and lock this off in 26 minutes. So I'm guessing 4 minutes have passed, so 26 minutes I'm gonna lock this off. So today I was gonna endeavour to go through some of this text, and it's interesting because I participated in a debate recently, hence these quite frivolous notes. And they asked me the question, because to begin with, I was listening to the people them just chatting as black people them like to do. And they asked something about, what do you think about black love? And I did not hear a definition. So I'm sitting right at the end of the table like, God, them people, them stupid. You know, but I don't toot or air my thoughts because I know, say, it might just sabotage the discussion or take it into the next direction, because they ask about black love. And the first thing that comes to mind when I hear black love is, I think about Nat Turner killing his oppressors in order to bring peace to his people, the Nat Turner rebellion, that army. That's what I think about when I hear the term black love. I think about people killing for you. If I love you, I'll kill for you. Another thing that came to my mind, they're talking about black love. I guess some of those fake, symbolic yet heroic scenes from the end of the film Panther, gone out in a blaze of glory, images of that. Black love. Also, I'm trying to stay away from this Sarah Shakur thing, but I think for me, another element of black love is to do with rebellion and defiance. Those themes, those images come to mind when I'm thinking about black love. It's none of this, look, I eat that thing right, yes sir. Or the one I got over there with the man proper digging up his thing inside the girl. That's not really, that's black indulgence. And the other thing I thought was a bit funny was someone even brought out that played out Windrush argument about, oh, grandparents stayed together for years. And it's like, you're conflating relationships and love. Like, grandma and grandpa could have had a nice little sighting that was coming true. They were just, and then they got back together with each other and so like, and still it's beside the point because you're still creating love with relationships, and that's not the same thing. Also, one of the moderators, I was speaking to her at the side, and she was like, you weren't really vocal, and I was like, it's still a pretentious exchange, or you ain't saying nothing, and that's what we like to do, I was saying, as black folk. Get involved in some fakery, fable, and fantasy when it comes to talking about serious issues. Can they asking people to introduce themselves? So I'm like, yeah, I'm a dead man. And the silence in the room is like, oh my gosh, I thought you was going to say some grandiose title so you could take pride in the pittance the establishment has extended towards you. Because that's the example, the definitions, the values, the priorities that we have are so distorted and twisted that when we talk about black love, it becomes really, if not lackadaisical, comical even. Because we're trying to talk about black love, and yet are we even black people? What is our definition? What are our values? Black plus, yet we're doing these white weddings costing like what, 10k and them things with money we don't even have to demonstrate love, to perform love, to pretend, to showcase. It's fantasy almost. It's childlike. Let's pretend game. It's like these masks. Let's pretend the air is evil, the floor is lava, the water is poison. It's the same thing. So that came to my mind when we were talking about black love. I was also thinking about fundamentally, I hear the term black love. What comes to mind is Baldwin's dictum, is maxim. It's clear that if I love you, I have to make you conscious of things which you cannot see about yourself, something along those lines. Even earlier today, for some reason, I was thinking about when Baldwin came at Malcolm sideways about, I could hear his point, I'm afraid it doesn't much interest me, that could be my fault. So I think that thing about, can I show you who you are? Which comes back to the thing about, I'm willing to hear truth, no matter who says it, or no matter how much it offends me. I was saying it's a bit comical to talk about black love because I don't think as black folk we're ready for those discussions about things that hurt and upset us. As long as someone agrees with us or is pleasing, I think we are generally fine. And by black people, I'm talking about those who are subject to white domination and have somewhat typical phenotypical traits or something along those lines. But it's mainly to do with those who are subject to race-based domination. That's what I was looking at when I talk about black. And in black love, how can I love myself when I am not myself? It's something I've been saying for like, how long? 8 years, 7 years, maybe even longer. So the premises, the definitions, they're a bit absurd in my opinion when we're chatting about these subjects then. And it just goes to show how much fantasy dominates our consciousness, how much it dominates my thinking. That's why I just play football. That is why I'm just like the generic football dude, sitting on TV, doing my thing, and then I come back to Brooklyn, do all these vague, ambiguous posters, and just hang out, slumming, hanging with Mr. Cooper. So those are some of the thoughts that really came to mind, and I think I got, yeah, exactly. I'm getting better at measuring this social construct called time. So the black love discussion didn't really go anywhere, and that's actually, before I even proceed to go through chapters in this, I think why it got so ridiculous for me, apart from the sentimentality and the romance, which has prompted me again with the whole idea of males are idealistic, females are opportunistic, males are romantic, females are pragmatic. What? They asked the question to me when I was out of it. I was zoned. I was zoned. They're like, so, do you think that black men love black women? And I was like, what? You know, you're just there reaching for something. And I was baffed because I said something along the lines of, oh gosh, because what they were basically asking is, are you part of the evil male conspiracy? And I was like, well, here we go. I said, I think we endeavor to love you, but we can't like you. And why it would disturb me or trouble me, kind of question is not even leading or that. It's distorted and it frames things in the wrong direction. Because you know when someone actually gives you an answer as a question, it was kind of that. Your question has assumed so many things that to answer it is irrelevant. It goes nowhere. And so I was like, you really need to check your question. Check your means of testing, as it were. Otherwise, you're just validating yourself. I swear down. The second they spoke, the word that came to mind was tautology. And I kind of thought to myself, let me not even throw that in there because it might just be a thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Tautology, I don't know those terms. So I thought, let me not do that. So I tried to go to Patrice O'Neill, defer to him. And I looked at the woman's eyes, because I always read that stuff, and I looked like I was losing her. And so she elaborated a bit more, and she was like, yeah, but do you like black women? And then that's when I figured out. I think they explained. She was talking about complexion. And I was like, this is what I mean about definitions. You're here talking about one thing, I'm thinking the next. And what's the point of this discussion if we're not pinning down what it is we're trying to talk about? The tyranny of ambiguity to both on Simon Shepherd. So they're trying to chat about that, about do you love black women? And I'm thinking about character, content. Then times, they're talking about colour, complexion. And again, it was almost like the ridiculousness of the situation for moi, at least. Because that question didn't really come up to us, our generation. That question did have no place, there was no belonging, the way I was raised, as it were. You was either black or you weren't, and the playground debates was, but is he black? Is Obama black? Is Charles Woods black? It was that type of thing. Is the bras black? There was no, you're light skin or brown skin or dark or chocolate. It was just you're black or you're not. I mean, there's other ugly aspects of the debate where black is equated with ugliness or slaveness, etc., etc. And the images of East Africa is to do with starving Marvin and the like. Those are other aspects of it. To continue, we didn't really endeavour to explore this inconsequential exchange. There was no shades of blackness. It was just you are black or not. So this question of do you like black skin? It was kind of a new phenomenon which I couldn't even make sense out of. And even one of the next brothers there was like, yeah, I was a bit confused by the question. Those taxonomies, I think that's how I'm trying to phrase it, they not exist in our mind. Those are kind of like as modern and recent atrocities, as it were, as this concept of black Britishness, when we was almost always rejected or dismissed in this context in which we operate. It's like a pass system, isn't it? But there's no formal passports. It's just, let me bother you, subject you to botheration for so long, you don't even bother come around here anymore. So that's kind of the regime that's operated in Britain, or the colour bar, as they used to put it. Like it's a piece of soap which you just scrub and bathe your skin and then to continue. So that was another thing that came up with that discussion. I was like, ugh. So let me see what I have here anyway, because I've been chatting a whole long time. I didn't even get to do my tokenistic introduction, you know that. So now I follow the footsteps of Tommy Curry, George Subira and Chinweezy Beckley alongside Frank Roderson. I didn't even really get to tell them I come from a masculinist perspective. However, the saving grace, holy, 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 was that I got to finally reverse or properly frame the question as, do black women love themselves? Because that's what I mean. We're asking things like, do you love black women? And as if the onus is on me. It's akin to when you see the brothers with Sally Cartel and everyone's there. And then growing up, you're like, oh my God, you're sending out the race. Why are you turning on black women? And then for me, Maybe it's the experiences, maybe it's the distortions, maybe it's maturity. But I, for one, come to realize that the question is not for the males to answer. The question of why black males go with white women is for black women to answer. But they, for me, pulled some type of con game, a swindle or hustle so smooth, they're putting the onus back on you to disguise their role in your dejection, in your torment, in your anguish, which almost forces you to these suicidal tendencies. Big Papa. So that's one of the things, like Monte Maddox's book, or T.C. Writer's book almost. That question of why do black men, that's what black women to answer. That's what I was trying to frame when I flipped the question. Don't ask me if I love you. Ask yourself if you're lovable. Which comes back to those themes about, do you hate women? It's like, do women hate themselves? That's the fundamental question. And let's say someone does hate women. What's really the veiled question? What's the meta message, as it were? Is the message you're irrational? Is the message you don't make sense? Is the message you are not a person of value? Your testimony has little worth, is not of any consequence, has no bearing. What is really being said when people put these questions forward to you? That's what there is to interrogate. The invisible, I guess, emphasis, the invisible emphasis, or the disguised veiled message, the coding, that's what I was looking for, the code that's really being put out there. And to really make those explicit so that you're not subject to them. It's like, if a guy says something like toxic masculinity, I swear down, let's come back at it. Yeah, toxic masculinity is a serious issue. I don't think it's as big as toxic stupidity. And it'd be like, holy, 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 holy Jesus. Because you have to do that a lot of the time. Switch the question. For that shame they're trying to impose on you, actually come with counter shame and strategy so that they're fully forced to look at themselves. Something the good guy does here, which I'll attempt to expound upon in the coming moments or minutes. So I think that's the gist of what needs to be said. Trying to see if there's other notes. Came up, they are something about Black British. Yeah, I have to leave that one still. I think that's my notes. Yeah, Austin the black woman loves themselves. So that's something to really think about when you're in these exchanges, involved in these discussions. What is the actual nature of the question? What is the question disguised in? What is being omitted from this summary? Whose perspective is dominating the proceedings? For the remainder of this quite surreal exchange, and I think it's because this whole environment is so different around me. So I'm a bit disorientated almost. Not displaced, more disorientated. Moving into a new world order. So I'm just gonna flip through this, and as you'll probably notice, I've got my colons in this book. I'm only actually like page 200, and I think this is 332 pages. Yeah. You know, you actually feel good about yourself, okay? Actually, your memory's on point. Yeah. So 332 pages, I'm lying, it's actually like 334, but I mean, I do this too. And I'm gonna break down some of the codings. I usually put a tick next to it if I think I should go back to it. I also put that if I think the whole segment's worthwhile. I underline things, of course. I put little things like Q. If there's a question mark after the Q, it means there's a question I need to interrogate. And if it's a Q by itself, it means interrogate the passage. Or highlight it. Or quote it. That's actually what it means, quote it. So I tend to use books, I don't just read them. If I put epic, I think it's a key part of that passage. So let's start from... No! And then you find some dirt in your books. And the thing that really gets me is he published a next book called Kwanzaa and the Black Economy in 1995. Well, it's due to be released in 1995. I don't think it got made, and sadly, I think that's the book we actually need for all of these. If you just give me £1, like £1, make a whole black economy and change England. You know the types. How many times? So it begins with think there's going to be, let's guess, I'm reckoning there's 24 chapters. I could be chatting breeze. Yeah, think I'm chatting breeze. Okay, 17 chapters, then concluding remarks, references, summary. First chapter, the legacy of the black female house slave. Second chapter, manhood problems that won't go away. C3, introduction to money. C4, the crucial adolescent years. C5, choices and decision in the dating game. C6, money, status, and a white woman. C7, a spin on the communication issue. C8, a male spin on the concept of commitment. C9, black man's burden, don't believe the hype. C10, money issues in marriage. And C11, where I currently am, the clash of careers, money, power, and sex. So I think I'm just over halfway, well, more than halfway through this book. I think the technical term would be that I could be chatting breeze. Just had the calculation in my head and it's gone. It is gone. It's gone. I won't even try to go back to that. So let's just start before we're trying to front that same small. So I think the thing that really caught me with this text is he begins by quoting the usual track that's out there, joking. He mentioned there's books like For Coloured Girls, The Colour Purple. Oh, but not funny. Brewster Place. Because I saw a documentary, I saw a scene from that. I thought, I wonder if I should download this. It was Oprah hugging up the gang. So I'm guessing that's one of those films about, oh, the black man, he's mistreated me, he's evil, he rapes monkeys, he eats with his feet, and they're like, there's Waiting to Exhale, which you'll remember. Should I download that? I like the part about like the little meat on the bone. I like that scene. So I might put that into public consciousness again. Waste like half an hour downloading and editing that for my people them. And Shahzad Ali's hair as well. Yeah. It was funny because he's called Shahzad Ali, but I always found a bit interesting is he's not quoted Chinrizu, which gets left out of this discussion. Claudio Pacheco and Estevilla, Artur Argentinian friends like Estevilla, I understand them getting omitted. But Chinrizu is left out. He's left out. Even had he quoted Iceberg Slim, I would have liked to really have seen that dynamic. And I was watching Liberation at LB Jones yesterday. I also saw Trick Baby. And that's just funny, I thought the character's name was Red, but it's blue. Or how memory works, or something else. And how he tries to go back for his gal and gets deaded. Whereas if you watch that, I think they call it a MGTOW film, Sandman recommended it, Screwdriver or Snowpiercer. There's a scene where his friend's about to get murked. And he's like, cha! And goes ahead and his friend gets killed. So, priorities, what are our priorities as males? I know if you add up the digressions, it's like 6 different episodes, program, workshops going on at once. I know. Bear with me. So he says to begin with, this book is not objective. Quote, everyone puts their experience, their research, their perspective and beliefs into their work, whilst neglecting factors which they neither are ignorant of or disbelieve, unquote. So he's just trying to establish that this is not trying to give you a balanced assessment of everything. He quotes Naeem Akbar, and I kind of just skipped that page because I've never really had time for them, man. There. It's better than we just chat for the sake of selling books, and I've never even read a word of their work, but I'm like, jarring. You know, some group chat the other day, a song called Claude Anderson. I was listening to Claude Anderson for a hot 7 minutes, and I had to just lock him off because he didn't say nothing. He's just there quoting the obvious, like, as black people, we don't get it. We spend our money in the wrong, you know, the Booker T. Washington, or Sherrod or Sherrod, whatever you want to call it. The spectacle, it just would get so boring. So like, why do people listen to this brother? They always like, Claude Anderson, listen to him. I was like, nah, don't need to listen to him, delete him off your computer. Here's the part I liked. He mentions there was this girl and how he got into females, or how he learned to relate to them was through Smokey Robinson, Curtis Mayfield, The Impressions, and they had a song called Shop Around. And Bad Girl, that was a couple of songs he mentions. Oh, he says he's 14 here actually, which is interesting. The key idea of sevens comes up in a few things that I've seen. So the fact he said he's 14, that was fine. And look. Their suggestions of letting it all hang out there got me into several emotional entanglements. And again, we're seeing this word. This is 1994, so I'm gonna quote that again later. And what he's trying to get at is he tried to be romantic with these females, and I think he doesn't use the term, but he knows how opportunistic they are, or how these idealistic framings that he got from these songs, they weren't effective. He actually learned that the more he pushed towards these females, the more they pulled away from him. And I think this is how he frames the discussion of males being feeling rejected and abandoned. That's what I really, really deeply enjoyed about this book. Not so much the counter arguments of framing from the male perspective, but to unpack male experience of feeling that despair and that degradation and I guess that element of contempt. Even the other day I must have seen one brother approach the girl. She gave me the whole, my shit smells like gold. I might have to edit that out. I don't think I've actually sworn on this thing at all. No cursing, so if I'm actually bothered, I might just edit it out. I'll see where it goes anyway. And he's like, what's with the attitude? And me personally, I'm childish, so I would have to like just cuss her off or say something. It's like, you know, before you fix the attitude, fix your headpiece. I might have to just drop something like that on her. I'm just petty like that a lot of the time. What can I say? But yeah, he's there on his own. Why are you so mean to me? And you should have said you need a box. But to continue, it's the whole thing about what males experience, but there's just no almost acknowledgement of it, no recognition of their pain and the nonsense and foolishness that men go through, which accumulates to the point of I ain't got time. And even yesterday, Ollie, one of the youths them on Snapchat must have uploaded a thing about if you want my attention but not me, then leave me alone. And how many times you hear he just wants your body, not you, sis. But you don't hear the thing about she just wants your attention, not you. And Patrice O'Neill thing, maybe this Anil Jakari, but attention to a woman is like a blowjob to a man. But we're not hearing this chat about how females use men. And that's why I appreciate Curry's work. Not so much the upfront, straightforward, but making sense out of female foolishness. And when I say foolish, I don't mean this without logic. I mean the game playing. The game playing which only stops once the belly pops. And I mean that in both senses of the word. Then all of a sudden it comes, I want stability and a man to take care of me. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, before now, what are you? For the constant game playing and jostling and trying to dominate and completely monopolize the discussion, those exchange of conversation. That's what I was trying to get at. So he talks about it in one of his chapters. He says here, page, well, VII, I don't know how to say that. He says, my personal confusion about how to look at and treat women was a preview of what was just about to occur between black men and women nationwide. By the early to mid-70s, some of the ideology of the women's movement had found its way into the thinking of some nationalist sisters. Who would have thought that I would have hooked up with one of the primary sisters pushing things in this new direction? So I think he's talking about how the women's movement intersected with the black identity agendas, as it were. Okay, it's a bit more waffle, as it were, in this text. He says, if a black man and woman can't talk intelligently to each other about each other, why should we assume we can talk intelligently about anything else? And it's funny because that discussion I was engaged in, it was about education and black Britishness identity. But began with the black love discussion, so it almost set the framework for fakery, because we're here, we just immediately go into these fancy ideals, you know, zoot suits and the like, taking a girl to the cinema. And unless we have a discussion, like I said, until we talk about black lust, don't talk about black love. Don't, yeah, just misusing our time, living in some foolishness. Here's where it really starts to get good. He starts to break down the black woman's aspirations and how her values are completely different to the black man, and how she largely has always identified with white definitions of selfhood. He also mentions about school peer pressure and how if you're intelligent you might get pushed back or be chastised in some way. Speaks about how, this is what I like as well, X11, I don't know what that says, I think that's 12, but anyway. Speaks about males trying to compete for female attention and how you can live the good life. And he says, here, he quote, a specific pattern is usually apparent when they reach about 14 years old. At this age, the females begin to ignore the romantic efforts of her male peers in favor of boys 2 or more years older than she. At this point, she begins to measure her own sense of value, development, importance, etc., and how much she can cause to be offered to her for her companionship with these older boys. 1994. ... or ellipses. These traditional avenues for status are sports, dancing, dressing, fighting, and music. At the same time, boys also learn that being, quote, a good guy, unquote, does not for the most part result in getting the preferred girls. ... Both sexes learn, directly or indirectly, that money and status count for more than what their parents and teachers told them. He's going through the anguish, the rejection, being ignored, being dismissed, and the game playing, and that asynchronous development, as it were. As Chinrizi said, females come of age at 15, men come of age at 60. Very troubling times, actually were. He goes on to say, black men of substance, status, or income seem to say that white women either A, accept them more for who they really are than black women do, B, better understand what costs have to be paid to be successful than black women do, C, are willing to pay a dearer cost to be their mate than black women are willing to do, and or D, make more of an effort to understand them than black women do. I mean, he really goes into a lot of stuff which people pretend is touchy, but they just don't want to touch it because I think they're so invested in this regime that silence is their frenemy, as it were. I'm just checking. Time check. You see, I'm almost done. I'm not even out of the introduction, so this might be a few segments, and next time I just focus on this instead of uploading. From a very early age, black boys and men are taught that their words are worthless. They talk in their own language, which is assumed to be crude, slang, until it's embraced by the larger society, when it is then used in television commercials and pop culture, and is deemed acceptable. Sounds like grime, isn't it? Or drill. Do you not hear on the radio? It's just like, how are you condemning this music? You're blazing it. That don't even make sense. I could be mistaken. Says the pride that today's black women feel in their progress, that's quote unquote, and their readiness to bash black men, I think you should have said misogyny, or attack, or insult, suggests that they think that they were always out front and men were always in the rear. So she's going into the contempt they have